paranormal. It surrounds us. It's everywhere. Tonight, you will hear from the people who live and work within these highly active locations, all in the efforts to discover America's most haunted. With your host, ghost hunter and author, Dan Terry.
Good evening, boys and ghouls. I am Dan Terry, your ghost host with the most haunted, and we're going back to North Carolina on this round. Young lady here, and she has already been part of over 250 ghost investigations. She's a sensitive psychic. She helps people out like that. And she's living in a town that was my home for some time, way back in the 80s. It is Wilmington, North Carolina, where the battleship North Carolina is. You know, I've talked to you about that many times. And that's where I was stationed in the service, was on the icebreaker, the Coast Guard Cutter Northwind, right across the river from North Carolina. So we got a lot to talk about because we both know the area and we both know ghosts. So let me bring on, you're going to love this, Tharyn Beyond the Veil.
Hello. Oh, goodness. Surprise! It doesn't. I cannot control this. I don't know why. I apologize.
No, nothing to be sorry about. It was a good laugh to start with.
Boo, here I am.
All right, so Tharyn, you have been doing this for a long time, but you lived in a haunted house as a youth. So what did you experience and got you into this life?
Oh my goodness. What didn't I experience, honestly? Like growing up, I started to gain my mediumship and psychic abilities when I was like 5. So I started noticing things that were kind of suspicious, and you'd hear noises. Yeah, old houses settled. You'd see things out of the corner of your eye. Yeah, that happens sometimes. But there were times I would have like a whole person I didn't know walk up to me and go, "I died here," and then disappear. So I had to just sit there and take that for a very long time. And the house itself is so intense. The things that have happened there, the experiences that not only I have had, but other family members have had, friends of mine have had, it all culminates into this like super haunted space. And over time of like experience after experience after experience, I got to a point where I was like, there has to be a reason. There has to be an explanation for this. There has to be some way to quantify this. It can't just be that I'm crazy. And here I am today, still considered crazy, but trying to quantify it as we go.
Tharyn, can I ask where you was living at the time when you was younger?
I was living in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, in a very, very tiny little town right on its edge. If you pass through it, you probably wouldn't even realize that you saw it because we had one stoplight and nothing else going on.
And what kind of stuff was you seeing and sensing when you was in this house?
I saw a lot of people. I'm clairvoyant by ability, but it didn't necessarily have to be a clairvoyant thing. It could just be there's a guy walking down the hallway, or there's a woman standing on the stairs, or there's a guy in the basement that's crawling out of the wall. Isn't that great? We love that when that happens. Lots of unexplained noises. Now, I can account for a house moving and settling. I can account for old pipes. But what I can't account for is the sounds of footsteps running down the stairs when you're the only one home, or someone calling your name, or just a whole orchestra of music coming out of your basement. Those are things I can't really figure out how that happened.
That's some real Amityville stuff right there.
We're right there. I'm going to be honest with you. Doors slamming, doors unlocking, things moving on their own. A lot of people have experienced shadow figures in the house. Unexplained smells. There's been so many things. Personally speaking, I've had experiences since I was a kid. And when I was younger, I was not as afraid of it until I got older, and then I thought I should be. And then at a certain point, they got really extra about it. But
Hmm.
I've seen so many things psychically. I've experienced so many things in the house, and a lot of it I was actually able to qualify with like historical records and
Okay.
newspapers and things like that. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
So in the house you were raised in when you was younger, when all this started, was you ever able to figure out why there was so much going on?
Ooh, that's a layered answer
Okay.
because the land itself, if you want to talk about the land, it was historically speaking, it was a land that was used by the Lenape tribe, and they were forced out very unceremoniously. All of their land was taken, and it was sold off. We have a lot of indigenous sites that surround where I live. The river was a site. Ringing Rocks is about 15 minutes from where I grew up. That was a sacred site. The Hexenkopf
Hmm.
Rock is about 15 minutes from where I grew up, which is also a sacred site. And we kind of are encapsulated in this little valley. And that is a place where they both lived and also buried their dead. So
Okay.
we desecrated that land, we misused that land to start. And then just a lot of bad things happened over top of each other. We were an integral part of the Revolutionary War. We've had a lot of fires and floods and things like that. A lot of really wild things have happened in the area. And with the house itself, it wasn't really always run by the best people. So a lot of that negative energy really went into it, and
Hmm.
it used to be a center of both joy and camaraderie, but also illegal activities through its
Okay.
tenure. So there's a layer of why the house itself is the way that it is.
So what age was you when you got out of that one?
I officially moved out when I was about 25, 26,
Okay.
and that was about 10 years ago.
So you were in there for quite a while, and you mentioned somebody just walked up and said, "Hey, I died here," and then disappeared.
Yeah, I've had people come in to say, I'm here to meet somebody. Where's the party? My house used to be a hotel for about 50 years, from
Okay.
1883 to about 19, I believe it's 1937 was when it was officially just turned into a home for
Hmm.
a family. We had a couple of resident ghosts that have hung around. There was Walter, the basement ghost, who was waiting for his whiskey because the basement used to be a bar. We had a guy that told me that he was buried in the walls, and the wall
Ooh.
specifically he said he was behind is, according to the lore of town, a secret room that we really can't verify. Even like
Okay.
today, we're still trying to figure out the original plan work, which we don't have. But there's so much outside lore that comes into it as well, overlapping from like experiences of hauntings out in town that kind of like roll over into my own house. There's ghosts that have been seen in my house as well as like the cemetery or like our church offices and things like that,
Hmm.
and they are just everywhere, and they come there all the time, and they're just there, or they're residents and they just hang around and they expect to be, treated like they're alive still, which is, I don't know how to tell them. I don't know how to explain.
So it's quite an interesting life coming up then.
It's it's wild in the sense of, how do you explain this as a big part of your childhood,
Hmm.
but also how do you explain this as a big part of your childhood with not immediately getting labeled that you're insane? And I've spent a lot of my time and energy to consider spiritual energy. How does it work? I can feel it the way I feel it. How do I quantify that? How do I prove what I'm doing? How do I prove to people that this house is haunted? How do I do that? And telling stories and expressing like the time there on
Hmm.
like all my social media platforms has been such an interesting journey between, I thought I was the only one who had lived in a haunted house like this, to, did you ever check for mold, lead paint, radon gas? And I love being able to say, yes, we checked all the boxes first. We have no
Right.
other explanation at this point. We don't know what else to say.
I don't see radon gas causing someone to walk up and say, "Hey, I died here," and disappearing.
Yes. And, even specifically, like a good consideration to make is like where my bedroom was. Other people have had very similar experiences in that bedroom at different times. And I had wondered, is it a mold issue? Is it CO2? Is there something in this room specifically that's causing these things to happen? There wasn't. There
Okay.
was nothing quantifiable in the human range of testing that we could find that was the reasoning behind why these experiences happened in like this space specifically, let
Mhm.
alone the fact the whole house is just filled with ghosts and they just live their life there. And we're just, oh, excuse me, Bob, my bad. I have to go to the bathroom. And he's like, this is my hallway. I know, Bob. I'm so sorry.
That happened.
Yeah, we have a ghost on our stairs and he's just there. I wish I could explain to you why. The few times that I've tried to communicate with him why, he said, this is where I stand, and that's it. And he pushed me one time. I had a big handprint bruise on my back. I remember showing it to my mom, and she was like, who pushed you? I was like, the guy on the staircase. And he still, to this day, I've spoken to my family who lives there currently, and to this day,
Huh?
he's still there. They still feel him. They still see him there, and every once in a while, they'll trip up the stairs when they're like, "Hey, get out of my way," and he's like, "No,
Oh,
I'm just gonna get
wow.
in the way." Yeah, it's pretty insane. I'm not
I'm
gonna lie to you.
surprised they haven't had someone come in and try to get rid of that thing. It sounds
We
dangerous.
he's just kind of there at this point. Like it's not something that happens so often that it's a concern. We have had cleansings done. We have when we were on we were on a TV show. They brought a shaman out to do a ritual on the outside of the house,
Okay.
but they didn't do the inside of the house.
Uh-huh.
So everybody was kind of stuck in the house for a while, and we got a little stir crazy. I've done cleansings. I've had other psychics come in and try to remove people,
Uh-huh.
but there's something about that area. There's something about that house. It's like it's. Have you ever heard of like the phenomenon of it not being the ghosts themselves just gathering, but space itself is just like a magnet or like a power battery for ghosts?
Hmm. Yeah,
That
the Mason house in Iowa was very much like that.
that's kind of how I describe the house. It's like its own entity, and it protects all the things inside of it. And we learned to talk to the house directly when we had a problem, of like, hello,
Really?
house. Yeah, it was such an interesting thing to go on a trip and be like, hey, so we're gonna be going on a trip, house, and talking to the house. Please protect us. Don't burn down. Please just keep things under control. We had someone come to stay in our house to watch it while we were gone, make sure nobody like vandalized or burgled it or anything. As soon as they walked in, they called us. They're like, I can't be here. The house
Really?
doesn't want me here. And then kept having intense experiences, like feeling people around them. They had tried to go to sleep. They woke up with somebody looking at them right in the face. They were like, I can't stay here. The house doesn't want me here. And yeah, the house took its job very seriously. It was like, get out. Nobody's
That
left
sounds
you
like a
here.
whole movie on its own.
It could be, honestly. I have wanted to really grind down into like why stay, because
Hmm.
like why stay, but also why here, and also what about it? And
Hmm.
because there's so many different voices happening, there's so many different time periods going on, because you've got from the 1883 to 1900, and then there's a whole different group of them from 1900 to 1920. you there's so many people to talk to. It's hard to like really categorize everything to understand it fully. And I worked very, very hard. Also, we had no historical information about this house other than it was a hotel. That was it.
Okay.
It took me 3 years of intense library hopping to get even the small modicum of things that I have about the house,
Mhm.
historically speaking. And in that search, some of the experiences that I had, some of the things that had happened, I was able to validate by names of people, what they looked like. Um, Finding like newspaper articles with people's names in them or records at the libraries and things like that. And I will tell you, the first thing I felt after all that work was, I felt vindicated.
Yeah.
All those years. All those years. I swear.
Hmm. It would be interesting. I don't know if you remember, there was a movie back in the mid 80s still showing places. It was called House, but it was about the house was the paranormal influence. Everything they saw in there, the house was causing them to see. So
I've never
similar.
heard of that movie. I would definitely have to check that out. That usually I get likened to Lydia from Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Okay. I can see
Or
that.
Poltergeist, Amityville. The house is called the most haunted house in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And I've had so many people Google it and be like, that's not what comes up. And I was like, I know, because that's what everyone around it calls it.
Yeah. Wow. And you've talked to the folks that live there, they're still having the same issues. It's
My
pretty
family's
cool.
There's still ghosts. There's still ghosts. They're still active. It's still the same. It's still the same spirits as far as I know. I love getting the phone call of this happened and this is what I heard and this is what I saw. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's that guy. Don't worry about it.
So how come you haven't? You've got the history of it. You've found some. You've got enough to write a book about it.
I didn't say I wasn't working on one.
Okay. All right.
It's been a process of healing in a way. It's been very cathartic. Understanding, like on a personal level, I did not realize until I got older how much of those experiences really stuck with me, or how they stuck with me. And I've had a lot of like dismantling to do internally, and to like, I talked to my therapist about it, which was that's a nerve-wracking thing to do when you're like, I need to tell you about this house I grew up in that was haunted. Please bear with me through this story. And he took it all, he listened to it, and he's just like, wow, I can't pretend to understand or explain what you were experiencing, but it had to have been terrifying. And I was like, wow, yeah, it kind of was. Because when you share experiences, especially like I'm sure you understand in this context, that it's the entertainment factor of it, of like, oh, that's really scary. People like to be scared. But sometimes we forget the impact of the experience that comes back to us. Yeah, it was really cool in the moment when it happened, and you talk about it in the past tense. It's like, wow, you won't believe what I saw. But then you think about I was 8 years old when that happened.
Right.
And when I was 8, I was like, oh my God, how am I not more traumatized at this point?
How do you sleep alone at night?
I didn't for a really long time, I'm going to be honest with you. Lights on, TV on, so I wouldn't hear anything, like
Right.
blanket forts. I could not sleep when I was a kid. Oh my gosh, it was terrifying concepts.
One of my friends, Tim, he's a sensitive that worked with me a lot. He called me one day after I'd moved, and he said he had just went into a Walmart several towns over because they were there. And in an aisle, he saw a very tall, large farmer wearing overalls that were dripping wet. And he knew the guy was a spirit. He was dead. But the guy looked at him, saw that Tim could see him, started screaming at him, and literally chased him out of the store. Tim had to tell his wife, and she's used to that kind of thing, that he had to go outside. He couldn't stay here right now. And as he walked out the door, the guy was right behind him all the way to the outside and then disappeared. Have you had something like that happen? Because it sounds like you have the same kind of abilities.
I would say that I've had experiences like this.
Okay.
When I go to places, I don't immediately open up to everything right when I walk in. I'll take a minute, kind of feel it out, get the vibe on the inside first, feel like, okay, what kind of amount are we working with? What kind of energy? How high are we in our energy right now? And then I usually start clairvoyant first, kind of map them all out. A couple times, if I don't do that though, that's when it's like they're right there. And you're like, oh, hi. And they're like, what are you doing here? Or going out to like famous places is funny because I love the commentary that I get sometimes where I'll walk in, I'll be like, I'm here to do the investigation. And you just hear somebody in the distance goes, oh my God, not this again. And they get so frustrated. Have had some pretty intense experiences with spirits just staring or being really in their death and just not very cognizant other than they know I see them.
Hmm.
And I don't think I've ever had anything run up on me outside of my house. But it's it's one of those things of like it's something that you can experience a lot when you're a psychic. I make sure to put a lot of steps in place to make sure that that doesn't happen as much because
Okay.
no.
You are currently living in Wilmington, which
Yes.
is a town that is very old, very
Hmm.
haunted.
Hmm.
Have you had experiences there now?
I've had a few. I have been very privileged to meet a lot of great people and to get access to places that people don't normally get to go to.
Hmm.
Um, there was, I'll tell you about one because I think you'll find this super interesting. So there's this bar on Front Street called Underfront. And it's literally like down a flight of stairs. It might as well have been a basement. You can, in one of the parts of the doorways, once you get to the bar, is one of the old underground tunnels. It's blocked off, but it's in there.
Hmm.
The building.
Okay, Tharyn, are you there? Okay, looks like we lost her.
I'm right here. I
Okay,
apologize.
no, no
I do
problem. Go
not
ahead.
know. I do not know how that happened, but okay.
Yeah, well,
Apparently,
that's
Underfront
ghost for
doesn't
you.
want me to talk about it. That's what it is. So, Underfront used to be storage for ports. So, people used to
Mhm.
bring their goods in there. You could have like barrels of things, grains, cotton, things like that. We went there for an investigation. We were going with my partner. She worked with the owner to go in. And we're there and like we're feeling it out. We feel some ladies, we feel some other people milling about, but there's this one guy who came up to me immediately. And the way I described him in my notes when we did the reads separately was he gave me Jack the Ripper vibes.
Okay.
Top hat, tall collar, kind of like in that old style, like turn of the century cape, like a wool
Mhm.
cloak, suit, like his hair looked dark. He had this intense, like Kubrick stare going on. And I was like, dang, man, do you think you're Jack the Ripper? Like, what's going on? Nobody else picked up on him but me. Later, I go to the owner, I was like, yeah, I don't know if you've ever like noticed this guy. He gives Jack the Ripper vibes. He goes, what did you just say? I was like, Jack the Ripper vibes. Turns
Mhm.
out there's an old theory that Jack the Ripper came to Wilmington.
Mm.
It's not a proven theory, but it is a
Okay.
general theory. The person they believed it was an older gentleman. I cannot remember his name, and that he came to Wilmington but went back to England at some point.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, that's really funny. And then later we connected with this guy, and he was just awful. He was awful to talk to. He psychically, he was like, do you want to see some really messed up stuff? I was like, no, not particularly. He had this arrogance about him. He very
Mhm.
much held himself. And when we asked him, like, do we know who you are? He said, yes, I'm famous, but he wouldn't tell us his name.
Okay.
So we call him Faux the Ripper because we're
Okay.
not sure. So that's one place. I've gotten the opportunity to go in the Bergwin Wright house a couple of times.
Mhm.
There's another house up the road that was famous for the ghost story of a lady that would leave you dimes. I got to check out that house. I've
Okay.
gotten to hop around so much of Wilmington and meet so many ghosts, as well as helping some historical spots to see if their ghosts could tell them anything about the site itself because they had no information. So it's been a
Okay.
wild ride here in Wilmington, truly.
Maybe around 2003 or four, I went and actually went back there and did a ghost tour. They took us off the main street around the back of a building into the basement, and it was through I don't even want to call it a hallway. It was just part of the building was above
Mhm.
us. Inside there was a bar, and wondered if that could be the same place. Now I don't remember what it was called, but I remember their thing was there was the ghost of a young black man who had been murdered, and he was always knocking beer bottles off trying to get attention. So one night they decided he needed a name. They chose one and made a plaque for him and put it on the wall, and all the problems slowed down.
So that could be part of the upper part of Front Street. That sounds like you could be talking about like behind Fat Tony's or something.
It could have been. I don't recall. It just, they let us off the road and around the back, and we actually entered through a back basement. But once we got in there, it was a decent little bar for a dive, but it had a long bar in it.
Was there like a tunnel to get into the bar part?
Yeah, it would be more of a tunnel.
That was it. It's Lula's or Lulu's. It's over yonder. If you go up from the river, it's like right there. It's right across from a building that used to be called the Serpentarium.
Okay.
So I know what you're talking about. The funniest thing about that bar, I've been there twice. I love the vibe, the tunnel system. You want to have a fun evening, stand in that tunnel as much out of the way as you possibly can, and hear the stories of what people say that tunnel was for.
Okay.
I could sit there all night listening to, in this tunnel, they used to have pirates. In this tunnel, this is where prostitutes used to hang out. Someone said it was a tunnel for something so wild. I can't recall what he said, but he made something up on the spot. And I was like, this is great. I love this.
Sounds like fun. Had to be the same place.
Oh,
okay,
yes,
Tharyn,
absolutely.
I have to step away for just a few minutes, but hang on because I got to run a couple of commercials. We'll be right back.
Awesome.
Well, she's a lot of fun. But yeah, Wilmington was an amazing town, and I hope she has some more stories for it, just because I lived there on the ship for quite a while. And there's a couple things I want you all to check out. Let's start with this, and I'll be right back.
The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from Unex Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unexmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unexmedia.com or amazon.com. The Unex Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Unex Network website at unexnetwork.com. That's unexnetwork.com.
All right, friends, we'll talk towards the end of the show more about you all joining the Unex Network and all the shows. And we've got some new shows coming out. I got an email today about a couple of new shows coming out. I don't know much about them yet. One of them don't even have a name yet. That starts in January. A lot of changes coming, though. We'll chat more about that as I find out more information. But still, joining the Unex Network is a no-brainer. But let's get back to Tharyn, because I am enjoying the conversation. I know the area. And what brought you to Wilmington?
New opportunities, really.
Okay.
I would qualify it as I had a awakening of an experience of like, well, I think it's time to do something a little bit different. And I had known my partner, Rebecca, the ghost guide, who was Wilmington based. And I was like, you know what? That sounds great. Let's go. And I've been here ever since. I have to say, it's probably the most home I have ever felt in my entire life. It is gorgeous. It is historical.
It is.
There's so much surrounding it too. It's fantastic. It's the most wonderful city. Absolutely.
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, so I'm glad you are too. Tell me more about the ghosts that you've dealt with, not specifically Wilmington, but some of the ones you've had to deal with.
So I would say one of my least favorite ghosts of all time was this ghost that I nicknamed Nightmare Man that lived in my basement at my house. And
In
everybody loves the
Pennsylvania?
Yes, back in
Okay.
Pennsylvania. He's the one who everybody likes to hear the stories about because he was the scariest ghost out of everybody.
Okay.
He was the one who was like, I am buried behind the wall of this house and I'm stuck here and I'm gonna make it your problem, essentially. He for the longest time, it was more like his existence was more like a feeling. Like you would go in the basement, you would just always feel uncomfortable. It was always like
Mhm.
somebody was in there, whether you were by yourself, and it felt like they meant you ill, like they did not like you, like you shouldn't be in there. And then like the first time I ever actually experienced him was in a horrible nightmare, which is why he got the name that he did, where he like busted out of a wall, grabbed me, and was like, "You're never gonna wake up from your nightmares." Sure, like sometime after that, I had the first paranormal team that came into my house. They're walking around, they brought a psychic with them. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." She's like, "Don't talk to me until I'm done." I was like, "Fair enough. Okay, do your job." Which I appreciated because I just was so excited for somebody to understand that
Mhm.
I'm glad she told me not to say anything so she could feel it out for herself. It was the end of the night. She goes to sleep. She was like, "Hey, listen, I have to tell you something." I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" She's like, "I picked up on something in your basement that doesn't like you, like at all." I'm like, "No, no, you didn't." And then she described what I saw in my dream back to
Okay.
me. And I was like, "No, he's not real. He was a dream. He's not real." She's like, "No, he's real." And like she even like I had never told anybody about that minus one friend specifically who
Okay.
wasn't there in the moment to tell anybody else, and she got every detail correct and things that he had said to me back to me through her mouth, and I was like, "Well, that's horrible. I am very upset now." And then over time, like he was very actively coming around and like making a show of himself after that. He would always show up as like a dark shadow in the corner of the room. And it would
Okay.
just feel like, you know, when you walk into a room and you immediately know somebody doesn't like you? That all the
Okay.
time. He was a big one that kind of shaped my fear a lot when I was younger. Now that I'm older, and I've been back to the house many times since, as I've grown as a psychic, I've grown as a person, he comes out and I'm just like, "What do you want? What are you going to do? You going to yell at me? I just go for it. I don't care anymore." And then he gets mad about it. So he crawls back into his hole.
You know, it kind of sounds some real Freddy Krueger stuff going on in the beginning of this.
Yeah, I suppose so. Like when you're in a space like that for so long, you become ingrained in the energy of it. And that's something that I've learned over time with like building into psychic abilities, how that works and stuff like that. They fed off of the energy of the house, which I'm going to be honest, wasn't always the best to be dealing with day to day. We had a lot of stress. It was always very high, very anxiety driven, very chaotic all the time. So it doesn't really surprise me now to understand why they acted so out of pocket or could do so many terrifying things all the time. They were feeding off a lot of like really high energy
Mhm.
all the time.
Were they, was the house, I'm going to refer to the house as an entity, was it causing the stress that you was going through, or was that just daily life stresses that were
There was a
strong?
culmination of factors. So
Okay.
really like the house chaos. My parents bought the house and already they were like, "What in the world is going on here?" When people
Mhm.
show up to you after you buy a house and are like, "Why did you buy this house?" You should probably heed that a little bit. It took them forever to do like basic renovations. It was completely abandoned when they first bought it. Nobody had lived there for quite some time, honestly, could not say specifically how long it had been, but they just up and left. House was in derelict condition. Parents were like, we can fix this, it's fine. And then as they're trying to fix it, their tools would constantly go missing. You'd find, be like, oh, I'm using my hammer, puts it down, turns around, hammer's gone. Where's the hammer? In the attic.
Sure.
Things like that. And like starting out, my parents were living there. I'm born in the 90s. And then my dad passed away. And my brother passed away. And then we had several family members all die in the same year. So the house went from like, ooh, big happy family home, fall apart.
Yeah.
So we had to learn to exist in that feeling and the grief of the changes. And then everything after that, my mom was just very like stressed about everything, work, the house is falling apart, and all this stuff's going on. Then he got me over here like, hey, there's this guy that's like hanging out in the corner and he said we don't belong here. What should I do about that? You're making it up. You don't know what you're talking about. So it was all kind of like a culmination of different things that caused the house to go so feral, I guess is a good way to put it. But the house itself, like, I would think under the right care with the right energy might level itself out a little bit. But right now it's just, we kind of accepted that it's the thing, like the house is. So we just kind of roll with it at this point.
Now, was there anyone else in the family that had the same abilities you had? Or was you alone?
Yes, but no, not to the degree that I was experiencing it, but I do have other family members that have sensitivities. They are not as actively engaged in it as I am, but it is not something that is uncommon in my family dynamic. It's just I would describe for them more as they know what they can use to keep their wits about them for what's going on, but they leave all the extra stuff to me.
Okay. Now, you're living in Wilmington, which has plenty of ghosts of its own. How about where you're living at now?
So where I'm living now is actually really calm. I don't have really any ghosts over here. I live in like the Midtown area, so I don't have as much of that centralized spiritual energy. But I did used to live off of 21st Street, which, Jesus, I don't know what it was about that neighborhood specifically, but we constantly have ghosts just popping in and just being like, hey, stuff. I had things like move off my counters. I had things go missing. We had a hat just appear out of thin air. We don't know whose hat it was or where it came from. We literally hadn't even moved in yet. Nobody else had been in the house. And I come in to do some moving and I'm like, whose hat is this? It's like a newsboy cap. Never seen it before. Don't know where it came from. The park is across the street, is by Burnt Mill Creek, which is Wallace Park. And that used to be a formation of a front line for the Civil War at one point. They had built up like a mound out there at one point. And I found that out recently, went, oh, that makes a lot of sense now. Now I understand.
That's why the whole area is haunted, but why your place in particular were they coming in? Because you could sense them?
That could be part of it. They probably felt the energy of us all together and were like, I'm just gonna go over where those people are. It was, I honestly, one of the big feels that I kept getting was that there was a unmarked graveyard somewhere nearby. That was the instinct that I kept getting. I did get some indication from a friend of mine who's a historian who said that there likely was a graveyard somewhere around there. That's not, but it's Wilmington. So pretty much Wilmington is a giant graveyard.
From the Revolutionary War on, there's been a center of everything good and bad.
Absolutely. You got Fort Fisher down the way to go see. They did such a wonderful job with it too when they did like the upgrades and the conservation that they did for it. You've got the Wilmington Railroad Museum down there. You've got all of these different sites from like the Revolutionary War that are still, you could still go see today. Like it's one of those great examples of energy kind of just piling on top of each other like a brick. And then all of these ghosts are just in the same place at the same time, still just walking around, just like, oh, well, they're tearing down that building. Wonderful.
Where else have you lived that there might be stories from you?
Oh, I hate to sound so boring, but honestly, I've only really lived in two places. this
Okay.
is this is the farthest from home I've ever been. One of the things that I do though that gets me a lot of stories is traveling. I do a lot of traveling, specifically
Mhm.
to places that may or may not house ghosts. You know, who's to say? I've been to St. Augustine. I've investigated old jail there. I've been to New Jersey. I've been to New York, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Georgia. I've been to Savannah quite a few times. I
Mhm.
I chase history for foremost, and I like to when I'm doing investigation things. It's more for me connecting to hear stories from people who may have otherwise just disappeared. So getting
Okay.
historical understanding or having somebody share their lived experience if they're willing to share it,
Mhm.
because I value the story of life even after the life has long since passed. So
Okay. So, what's one of the stories you are particularly fond of?
I would love to talk about one of my favorite places that I've ever visited that was like the most actively haunted and just the funnest time I think I've ever had. Old Jail. Old Jail is so interesting in the
Mhm.
way that they know what they're supposed to do. You've got ghosts who know their reputation and they will capitalize on that and make your money worth it. I remember going there for an event. I'm the investigator, so I'm leading the group. And
Okay.
we had equipment making like noises, like it sounded like the doors were creaking open
Mhm.
and nothing was moving. We heard people screaming, but then screaming and congratulating each other for screaming so well. And then we were all like, great job, you did such a good job. They're like, what in
These
the
are
world?
spirits.
Yes, these are spirits. The amount of audio evidence, and I have that on my, like, I have a whole 2 video section about St. Augustine, some of the most interesting things that happen there on my YouTube channel. Like, the ghosts are talking to each other, are hyping each other up, and are like, oh yeah, you just run in there, scream in their face. And then we were like, that was really great. And they're like, what
Mhm.
the hell? It was so interesting to see the self-awareness of what the
Mhm.
site is, what it's billed for, and how the ghosts come in to meet that expectation for you and give you a scary experience. It was incredible. I loved it. It was so great.
Now, I did not get anything at the old jail, but the lighthouse, and the only thing that happened was before the tour. It was a midnight or a moonlight tour, and people were coming in. So my wife and I stepped to the far back corner. We got our tickets and was waiting, and all of a sudden, this table full of stuffed animals. One of them comes flying off of it and comes right at us and lands about that far from our feet.
Oh my God.
And there was nobody around. I mean, there was a lot of people in there, but nobody even close to this table. So somebody just picked it up and threw it for, I don't know, frustration, maybe. I don't know.
I had a ghost throw a touchlight at me once. I caught that on film too. I was so thrilled. I
Oh,
had a touchlight. I was in my the area I grew up. We have a graveyard right up the street from my house. It's known for being very haunted. We have our own folklore around it. We have our own white
mhm.
lady and everything. Well, there's
Okay.
this one grave. I was doing a live stream, and there's just one grave where all these people were like commenting on it. They were like, "There's something on the grave," and it looked a little like blurry, but I was like, that could be just the video feed, like
Mhm.
debunk. And then the next time we go over there, I put a touch light with it, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, "So, is there something you want to say?" Touch light, phew, flies off the grave, and I was just like, "Yay!" I'm so excited. I don't get scared anymore. I just get
No.
excited when something cool happens. I'm like, "Yes, this is exactly what I was hoping for."
No, I'm with you on that. A rock comes through and hits behind my head, and I'm going, do that again. I dare you. I double dog dare you.
It's like when you're sitting there and you're doing your audio stuff, like if you're doing S Fox or something, they're like, "Get out, we're demons." You're like, "Really? Cool. Okay, can you show me? Can you
Yeah.
like manifest?" Or when things fly, things go off. It always makes me laugh sometimes when I see people that ask for something and then it happens and they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, you asked though. I'd be freaking out of excitement. Just like, yes, good job, ghosts.
Oh, that's the fun part of this.
I love this job.
Now you've got some stuff coming up too that you are doing. I know. I think we got a banner.
Yes.
For one of them. Now you do. How do I say this? Group investigations.
They're like it is like a group event. So we host like weekend long events to bring people together to experience not only hauntings in a space, but history and to learn and to have, togetherness in the experience. And right now we're doing in February on the 13th through the 16th, we're having Spirits of Wilmington, where you can come to Wilmington, North Carolina and be guided by both myself and my partner, Rebecca the Ghost Guide, into all of the things that make Wilmington one of the most underrated haunted cities in the South.
Okay. So what kind of stuff are you looking at? Do you have an itinerary yet, or
Yes.
We're going to this place?
So here the itinerary is as such. We start our adventure on the first day when you all get in. You get to relax for a little bit, and then you get a personalized tour from Rebecca the Ghost Guide, who will tell you the history and the hauntings. She was a professional tour guide in the city when she was living here, like earlier when she first got here.
Okay.
She's got all the tea. She knows all the ghosts by name, and she's going to tell you all about it. Following that, we give you space to explore Wilmington on your own. We provide tickets to some of our favorite museums, like the Bergwin Wright, so you can go tour that, or the Wilmington Railroad Museum. We will also be investigating the USS North Carolina, which is the haunted spot of North Carolina.
I have talked to several groups who's been there. One guy's investigated it 64 times, so I hear a lot about it. Have you been in it?
It's an incredible spot. I haven't investigated it before, but I have toured it before. And the amount of strange things I couldn't explain happening in my years of experience doing this was too much.
Okay.
Like getting hit with cold air when I shouldn't, because there's no vent, getting hit with hot air when there's no reason that should happen. People's footsteps. I heard people calling out like, hey, what are you doing? Nobody else is around. They're so active there, which is why we were like, that's got to be the spot. So we can take everybody into.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're giving a lot of space for free time for people to go explore the city on their own. And we're also going to be having a ghostly after party at the Wilmington Railroad Museum with music and food, so you can mingle, dance, hang out. And I wouldn't be surprised if a ghost or two comes in and complains about the music. I'm not.
So it's a weekend event then?
Yes, it's if you want to have the most haunted Valentine's Day you've ever had in your life, treat yourself and come to Spirits of Wilmington. You don't want to miss the ghost experience that we are providing for you during that weekend.
Now, you said you have plans for more of these. Is this your first one like this, or have you held more of these?
This will be my second. My first one was Spirits of Savannah, where we all traveled to Savannah, Georgia. We did a very similar breakup of the same things, just in different places. We also have future plans for different places. We want to go back to Savannah to do another event there. We hope to move to go to like Gettysburg, New Orleans. We also did want to check out Charleston at some point. We have a list of places that we would love to do this with, to try to give people a really good, well-rounded paranormal experience. You know what I mean?
New Orleans, I've been to many, many times, and there's a lot of competition there with the ghost hunting groups.
Oh, I am very aware. I went one time for an event. It was an interesting experience. I was kind of a little like, okay. But you didn't really we didn't really need to go to a location. You could just walk down the street, the French Quarter, and you'll see a ton of ghosts just hanging out, living their lives. It's beautiful though. Oh my gosh. And the food.
Yes, no doubt about it. Did you get around to seeing Bloody Mary?
Bloody Mary. You'll have to Bloody Mary in Wilmington?
She runs ghost tours. She has a voodoo museum and shop.
Bloody Mary in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
We are mutuals. I did not get the chance to meet her when I was in New Orleans, but we are mutuals on the internet.
I got to interview her once. She's a firecracker. She's something, but she's got her stuff now going out of a building where there was a murder suicide, where the guy murdered his girlfriend and cooked her into a pot of gumbo or something. But like I said, if you get down to New Orleans, you got to get the chance to go see Mary. She's a sweetie.
Me and Mary have been mutuals for a while, and I remember her telling me, like, if you ever come down to New Orleans, let me know when you're here. And I so absolutely want to do that. It's just timing, getting it planned out.
Oh,
you know
sure.
what I mean?
Life is that way. So, what's your next plan? Do you have another one planned after this one, or is it just you want to get back to Savannah and those?
As of right now, our tentative plan is to do one for the fall season, but we're trying to specify what that actually is going to look like. We may do some smaller events throughout the year. But as of right now, we're very focused on Wilmington. And then as we progress forward, I would say we'd probably have a better idea about that towards December more than anything.
Well, Wilmington should have enough that you could even do one just on the different bars and taverns, because I did a haunted pub crawl there once, and it was pretty, there was a lot to talk about.
You've got the whole downtown Wilmington. You've got Fort Fisher. You could even go outside of the area, and you could go to Brunswick Town, which I've done some work with Brunswick Town. They've got a lot going on over there. There's so much to cover under the Wilmington umbrella. We could do 3 in a row and probably not even cover half of it by that point.
Well, for people to get hold of you and to check more of this, we have you got a TikTok page, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and they're all Tharyn Beyond the Veil, right?
Absolutely. If you look Tharyn Beyond the Veil, I'm the only one out there as far as I know.
Yeah, I think so. All right. Well, Tharyn, I'll tell you what, hold on here, but it was great having you. I love talking about Wilmington, even though there's about 30 years between when I was there and when you was there. But it's still a great town, and I would push people to come down there, and especially to try and get onto one of these things you're doing, because it sounds like a lot of fun.
We strive to give people the best time. The person you see here, this energetic person, is the person you're getting when you come down. So you better be ready for stories and excitement, and for me to be like, this is my ghost friend, James.
All right. Well, listen, hang on for a second. I want to talk to you some more when we get done, but we'll be right back. Thanks again for being on the show, though. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. It's always good to get to meet new people in the field and to just share experiences. You know, I love that. I love that about this field specifically.
Well, we're both in North Carolina now, even though neither one of us are from here. So I'm sure we'll run into each other.
Most likely, yes.
All right. Well, thanks again. And hold on. I'll be right back with you. All right, friends. This was a fun one. Like I said, I really enjoy talking about my new home, North Carolina. Wilmington was once my home for a few months or so, but it was a great place to be. The town really changed when I went back in 2000s. I understand it's got a lot more homeless now. So it's kind of balanced out from what it was. When I was downtown, it was a dangerous place, but it got a lot better when I went back. Hey, guys, I do want to talk to you, though, about joining the UNX Network. UNXNetwork.com, simple to remember, and then drop down on the front page. There's a way to join up. And what do you get? Well, of course, you get access to all the shows. And we have got a bunch of new shows coming, but right now we've got conspiracy, ghosts, UFOs, aliens. We've got Bigfoot, cryptid, any kind of cryptid you can imagine, Mothman. We've got other ghost hunters like myself. Michelle Roos out of Iowa has a show. There's one called Get Haunted with some guys that's doing a great job. There's a lot of a lot of this stuff is going on around us. And there's just so much to do, and all these shows are on there, and they're all free. Even if you don't join, you can still get on the MX Network. But if you join up, you also get the newsletter. The newsletter comes out, several times a week, and it will have a story. I think the most recent one was about Mothman being seen recently. There's a little bit of the history. There was one, I think, today or yesterday about the Kecksburg UFO crash, just because that was the right time period. And so much other stuff going on is right there in the newsletter. Plus, it'll give you a rundown of what the shows are going to be that night and others. So on top of that, you get the blog. And guys, I keep telling you all, the blog has just been going nuts lately. It's on fire. We've had winged humanoids seen over the Missouri River. We've had, we were really big on top of the Tic Tacs when the Navy come out and said that the Tic Tacs were real. The videos were real. So we were on that one. Same thing, UFOs, cryptids, Halloween, of course. And if you join, you also get access, and mailed to you every other month is our magazine. Now, it's all emailed. You can get it in print form. You have to order that special, but through the email, it's free, and the magazines have a lot of stuff in it. There's one on the left. I had 2 stories in, one on the battleship North Carolina, which Tharyn was just talking about, and one on Halloween legends. And I'm talking about when I was a kid, they used to tell us on Halloween cults were going to kidnap blonde-haired, blue-eyed children and sacrifice them, or apples with razor blades, or drugs in the candy. All of that has a tiny kernel of truth in it. So I talked about all of that. The other one, this one here, was about time travel. And of course, each magazine has what it's got a theme to it. This one here just come out in March of this year. I did a special one just on haunted dolls. I get a few articles in there, but we get some really top-notch guys in there also. For instance, Lee Spiegel, before he passed away, of course, did some great articles for the magazine. Some other big-time people are doing it. And then this one here, I did the last call at the Devil's Diner. If you follow me at all, I was on the first and third investigations of the old Tri-County truck stop, which was a Route 66 restaurant that was absolutely insane. I did several after that. March of this year, a tornado hit it and destroyed it. It's gone now, or unusable. I think there's still a little bit of a husk of the old building left, but a lot of ghosts in there, and I dealt with it, and I wrote all about it. So there's a lot of stuff in these magazines for all over the country, all over the world. What are you waiting for? Join up. Now, on top of this, after saying all of that, I'm afraid I have to move along because my time's just about up. But thanks to Tharyn again. She was a sweetheart, really did a great job, and I enjoyed talking with her. And what I can tell you folks, it's staying. Well, it's cool now. It's past October, of course. So I want you guys to stay cool, stay warm, and most important of all, I want you to stay spooked. Good night.